The humid air of Vyrex 9 clung to Kalen Voss's skin like a suffocating blanket as alien hands shoved him through the rough-hewn doorway. His diplomatic envoy uniform, once pristine white, was now torn and stained with the rust-colored dirt of the jungle moon. The heavy door slammed shut behind him with a grinding finality that made his stomach clench. "Perfect," he muttered, running his hand through his sweat-dampened brown hair. The peace talks had gone spectacularly wrong when the human delegation was accused of espionage. Now he was trapped in what appeared to be a primitive but effective prison carved directly from the living rock of a cliff face. A soft rustle from the shadows made him freeze. He wasn't alone. From the darkest corner of the cell, a figure emerged slowly, deliberately. Kalen's breath caught as he took in his cellmate, a tall, elegant alien female with pale purple skin that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light filtering through the barred window. Dark, curly hair framed a face that was unmistakably beautiful despite its foreign features, and her dark eyes held an intelligence that immediately commanded respect. She wore what remained of some kind of armor, battered and torn but still bearing intricate designs that suggested high rank. Fresh bruises marked her arms and face, evidence of her own violent capture, yet she held herself with the unmistakable bearing of a warrior. Every movement was controlled, predatory. Revessa, for that was her name, though Kalen didn't know it yet, studied the human male with equal intensity. She had heard of his species but never encountered one so closely. He was smaller than her people's males but carried himself with quiet confidence. His clothing marked him as someone important among his kind, and despite his obvious distress, he wasn't cowering or pleading. They circled each other warily in the confined space, neither speaking. The language barrier was absolute, but both understood the gravity of their situation. Outside, harsh alien voices barked orders in the local dialect. Guards patrolled regularly, their heavy footsteps echoing off stone walls. As the artificial twilight of the prison settled around them, Kalen pressed his back against the cold wall and slid down to sit. Across from him, Revessa did the same, never taking her watchful gaze from his face. Neither knew that within days, they would share the most intimate bond known to her people, or die trying to escape this nightmare together. 3 days passed in tense silence before hunger forced them to communicate. When the guards tossed a single portion of food through the bars, Kalen gestured for Revessa to take it all. She stared at him for a long moment, then carefully divided the meager ration in half. "Thank you," he said softly, touching his chest. "Kalen." "Revessa," she replied, her voice melodious despite its alien cadence. She repeated his name slowly, testing the foreign sounds. Their first breakthrough came when Kalen noticed her favoring her left arm. Using gestures and simple drawings scratched into the dirt floor with a small stone, he managed to convey that he had medical knowledge. She hesitated, then allowed him to examine the injury, a deep gash that showed signs of infection. Working with strips torn from his uniform and water from their shared drinking vessel, Kalen cleaned the wound with gentle efficiency. Revessa watched his careful ministrations with growing respect. When he finished, she spoke a word in her language that he instinctively understood meant gratitude. Days blurred together as they developed their unique form of communication. Revessa drew symbols representing her people, proud warriors who protected sacred groves on this jungle moon. Kalen sketched star charts and ships, explaining through gestures that he came from the sky, seeking peace between their peoples. She taught him words: water was Thala, food was Kesh, and sky was Valen. He shared English in return, delighting in her quick mastery of pronunciation. Her laugh, rare but genuine, became the highlight of his imprisoned days. On the 7th night, as they shared another meager meal, Revessa began to hum, a haunting melody that spoke of distant homes and lost freedom. Without thinking, Kalen found himself humming harmony, their voices blending in the humid darkness. When she looked at him with surprise, he smiled. "Music is universal," he said, then repeated it in her language as best he could. That night, they slept closer together for warmth, the invisible wall of mistrust finally crumbling. Kalen woke to find Revessa's hand resting lightly on his shoulder, and he didn't pull away. Her skin was warm, her breathing peaceful. Neither yet understood how deep their connection was growing, or how desperately they would soon need to trust each other with their very lives. The harsh sound of approaching guards woke them at dawn. Kalen counted at least 6 sets of footsteps, more than their usual patrol. He and Revessa exchanged worried glances as voices spoke rapidly in the local dialect outside their cell. Revessa's face went pale as she listened, her body tensing like a coiled spring. When the footsteps retreated, she turned to Kalen with urgency in her dark eyes. "Tomorrow," she said in halting English, then switched to her own language, speaking rapidly while gesturing at her throat. The meaning was unmistakable. Kalen felt ice form in his stomach. "Execution." She nodded grimly, then began pacing the small cell like a caged predator. For hours, she remained silent, clearly wrestling with some internal conflict. As the artificial twilight settled over their prison, she finally stopped pacing and knelt before him. "Kalen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There is, way. Old law. Sacred law." She struggled with the English words, switching between languages as she explained. Gradually, Kalen understood, the trial by bond, an ancient tradition that even the current rulers dared not ignore. If 2 prisoners declared themselves bonded, truly mated in the sight of her gods, they must be released. But, Revessa continued, her eyes never leaving his, bond is, forever. No breaking. No leaving. Life mate. Kalen stared at her, processing the magnitude of what she was proposing. Not just physical intimacy to secure their freedom, but an eternal commitment to a woman he'd known for barely a week. An alien woman from a species he was only beginning to understand. Slowly, Revessa reached beneath her damaged armor and withdrew several metal bands, each etched with intricate designs. Her ceremonial markers, symbols of her rank, her achievements, her identity as a warrior. "These I remove only for life mate," she whispered, setting them aside with reverence. "If you say yes, Kalen of the Sky People, you become mine. I become yours. No other way." As she spoke, she unfastened more of her damaged armor, revealing the pale purple skin beneath marked with ritual scars and tattoos that told the story of her life. Each mark was beautiful, meaningful, sacred. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like the humid air itself. Freedom through bondage. Life through surrender. Part 4, The Bonding. "Yes," Kalen whispered, the words seeming to echo in the stone chamber despite being barely audible. Revessa's eyes widened, searching his face for any hint of doubt. Finding none, she nodded solemnly and began to speak in her native tongue, her voice taking on the cadence of ritual. Though Kalen couldn't understand the words, their meaning resonated through his very bones. She guided him to the center of their small cell, where moonlight from Vyrex 9's twin satellites streamed through the barred window. "First, we share breath of life," she explained softly, placing her hands on either side of his face. Their faces drew close, and she breathed out as he breathed in, then reversed the exchange. Her breath was warm and carried the faint scent of the jungle flowers she'd once told him about. The intimacy of it sent shivers through his body. "Now blood of our veins," she continued, producing a small, sharp stone. With ceremonial precision, she made a tiny cut on her palm, then his. Their hands pressed together, mixing their life essence as she spoke ancient words over their joined flesh. The final ritual needed no explanation. With trembling hands, Kalen helped her remove the last of her armor, revealing the full beauty of her warrior's body. Her purple skin seemed to glow in the moonlight, every scar a story, every line a poem of strength and survival. She was equally gentle as she helped him out of his torn uniform, her touches reverent rather than lustful. This was sacred to her people, and he felt the weight of that sanctity. When they came together, it was with a tenderness that transcended species. Their bodies fit together as if designed for this moment, and every caress carried the promise of forever. She guided him through the physical aspects of her people's bonding ritual, whispering encouragements in both languages. "Thalame," she breathed against his ear as they moved together. Heart 1. You are my heart one. Their union was both desperate and divine, driven by necessity but transformed by genuine feeling. As they reached the ritual's completion, Revessa cried out words that seemed to shake the very stones around them. In that moment, lying entwined in the pale moonlight, they both felt it, a connection deeper than mere physical joining. Something eternal had been forged between them. Outside their cell, they heard footsteps approaching, then stopping. The guards had witnessed the final moments, and by morning, ancient law would demand their freedom. The heavy door swung open with a grinding protest as the first rays of Vyrex 9's primary star filtered through the jungle canopy. Kalen and Revessa, now dressed and standing hand in hand, faced their captors with quiet dignity. The guard captain, a massive alien with ceremonial scarring across his face, spoke in formal tones to Revessa. She responded with equal formality, her voice carrying new authority. Kalen didn't need translation to understand, they were free, but bound by laws older than the current political conflicts. They acknowledged the bonding, Revessa translated as they walked through corridors that had seemed like a maze when Kalen was dragged through them. But you must prove yourself worthy to my clan. The next months blurred together in a whirlwind of cultural adaptation. Revessa's people, the Vakari, were initially skeptical of their warrior's alien mate. Kalen proved his worth through patience and ingenuity, using his engineering skills to help improve their irrigation systems and defensive structures. Slowly, respect grew. The clan elders who had initially viewed him as a curiosity began to see him as an asset. His diplomatic background proved invaluable when human and Vakari representatives met to discuss the conflicts that had led to their imprisonment. You were right, Kalen told Revessa one evening as they sat together watching the twin sunsets from their new home in the Canopy City. The bond wasn't just about freedom. She smiled, her hand finding his. Among my people, we say that the gods put obstacles in our path not to stop us, but to give us what we need to become who we're meant to be. Their relationship had deepened far beyond the desperate circumstances of their first union. What began as necessity had grown into profound love. They learned each other's languages fluently, shared their cultures, and built something entirely new together. When the first joint human-Vakari expedition launched to explore the outer moons, it was Kalen and Revessa who led it, living proof that two species could not just coexist, but create something beautiful together. As their ship lifted off into the star-filled sky, Kalen marveled at the journey that had brought them here. A failed diplomatic mission, a primitive prison, and a desperate gamble had led to the greatest discovery of his life, that love truly was universal, transcending species, language, and worlds. Revessa squeezed his hand as they watched Vyrex 9 fall away beneath them. Thalame, she whispered. Always, he replied in her language, then added in his own, forever.